This is iFIBER 1 News. Here are today's top stories.
Grant County's annual outdoor burn ban is set to go in effect on June 1st.
Wildfire is everywhere in Washington state. Hillary Franz has only 7 helicopters, all dating back to the Vietnam War, to cope with them.
The Moses Lake Chiefs baseball team has only made it to the Final Four once before in school history, in 1981 when the Chiefs won the state title.
After a spate of soaking rains washed out day one of the Northwest Athletic Conference Championship softball tournament to end the week.
From the iFIBER 1 newsroom, this is iFIBER 1 News, and it starts now.
Grant County's annual outdoor burn ban is set to go in effect on June 1st. The countywide burn restrictions passed by county commissioners in 2017 go through September 30th for unincorporated areas of Grant County. Agricultural and orchard burning are still allowed when permitted by the State Department of Ecology. And recreational campfires are allowed in approved devices at public campgrounds when permitted by the Campground Authority. Any recreational campfires at residences and private fire pits are allowed as long as there is 25 feet of non-combustible space around the fire pit, and gas and charcoal barbecues are still allowed. Anyone caught violating the ban faces a $150 fine for a first offense, $300 fine for a second offense, and $500 for the third offense. County officials are also reminding residents that outdoor burning remains prohibited in all cities and urban growth areas when the county burn ban is not in place. This is Joe Utter for iFIBER 1 News.
This segment is brought to you by
Change doesn't have to be complicated. With a low-profile microwave hood combination that's ready to install right out of the box. It fits in the same space as your under-cabinet hood, so you can get your microwave off the countertop and make space for the routines worth keeping. The low-profile microwave hood combination, from the #1 selling appliance brand in the USA.
Whirlpool Appliances, now available at more furniture in Ephrata.
Wildfire is everywhere in Washington state. Hillary Franz has only 7 helicopters, all dating back to the Vietnam War, to cope with them. But in an interview Monday with iFIBER 1 News in Wenatchee, the state's Commissioner of Public Lands said new funding and adaptive strategies are in place to help control the fires we know are coming.
When I came into office, I knew that we needed to tackle the wildfire crisis, which is very much connected to our forest health crisis. I mean, it was #1 priority from the beginning because obviously it has a significant stake to the people of Washington state.
Not just in terms of property loss, but air quality, after the fire season of 2018 left the entire state breathing thick air pollution. And the geography of fires has changed. So far this year, 50% of brush fires in Washington have broken out on the west side of the Cascades, where land has historically been damp and fire-resistant.
The awareness of the wildfire crisis we have has now reached largely every single person in Washington state. And you here in the eastern Washington, you know that what you experienced last year, you've been experiencing for the 5+ years before that. You've known how significant this issue is for a long time. I would say that hasn't been the case for much of the population and communities on the west side of the state until last year when we had the worst air quality in the world from Spokane all the way through to Seattle.
Franz was elected to head the Department of Natural Resources in 2016. She manages the state's land investments as well as its force of 1,500 firefighters who respond to emergencies throughout Washington. The cost for battling wildfires has averaged about $153 million a year, but the state has never established a permanent funding stream to pay for it. Franz got about $50 million of a proposed $55 million for wildfire response in the last legislative session, which will add 2 helicopters to the fleet and establish 30 more full-time firefighting jobs. But an insurance premium surcharge that would have generated $62 million a year did not make it out of the legislature. Franz says that was just one possible mechanism for long-term funding, and she'll ask lawmakers to study the options again next year.
As I always say, we're going to pay for it regardless. The question is whether we're going to pay to react in the face of smoke and flames and potential tragedy, or we're going to pay for it up front in a proactive way of getting on the ground in our forests and treating them to make them more resilient in the face of fire and actually have the resource and capacity to keep our fires small and contained and put them out.
Franz's department established a forest health plan approved by the legislature and recently signed a partnership agreement with the U.S. Forest Service and State Department of Fish and Wildlife to focus on forest protection. And DNR has launched a Rural Communities Partnership Initiative with about 150 economic development projects in small towns statewide.
This is an opportunity where we're really seeing ourselves as a partner and a neighbor in our communities. And, for every dollar we're able to increase on our own lands, we're also able to then stimulate even more economic opportunity in that community that has a win for everybody.
Jefferson Robbins, iFIBER 1 News.
This segment is brought to you by
Your taste buds bored? Well, then bring them to Jay's Teriyaki. Not only does Jay's have a variety of teriyaki dishes, they also offer mouth-watering salads and sides. Call Jay's 509-764-5155. Jay's Teriyaki, located at 123 East Broadway in Moses Lake, because it's all in the sauce.
The Moses Lake Chiefs baseball team has only made it to the Final Four once before in school history, in 1981 when the Chiefs won the state title. Since then, the Chiefs have made it to the state tournament 6 times without being able to break the quarterfinal barrier. That finally ended on Saturday afternoon when the Chiefs beat the Richland Bombers in the quarterfinals 5-0, becoming the second team in Moses Lake history to make the semifinals and the first team to do it since 1981. The Chiefs and Bombers both struggled to score early, with 3 innings going by scoreless. Moses Lake started stringing together some hits in the 4th and 5th innings, scoring 2 runs apiece in those 2 innings. The Bombers scrambled to find an answer, going through 2 pitching changes in those 2 innings, but they couldn't stop the Chiefs. Another run in the 6th inning made it 5-0, and that's where the score stayed. Moses Lake's infield was on fire, making several great plays to keep the Bombers from scoring. After the game, head coach Johnny Lindgren was emotional, but he knew that his team's journey isn't over yet.
We've been talking about state championships since these guys have been 8, 9 years old. We want to reach what one other team has reached in Moses Lake history. Nobody else has reached the Final Four, and only one other team has won the state championship, and we want to be that second team. So we're unfinished business. These guys are all about winning.
Dax Lindgren pitched the entire game and suffocated the Bombers' offense.
We just came into it as a playoff game. We didn't expect to play Richland. We were just concentrating on Hanford first game, and then we saw Richland win, and we were thinking about Richland, and we got it done.
The Chiefs will play perennial contender Skyview in the semifinals. That game will be at Gesha Stadium in Pasco on Friday at 7 p.m. I'm Adam Chikoski for iFIBER 1 Sports.
After a spate of soaking rains washed out day 1 of the Northwest Athletic Conference Championship softball tournament to end the week, the Diamonds at the Dwight Merkel Sports Complex in Spokane finally bloomed on Saturday afternoon with games featuring the colors of both the Wenatchee Valley College Lady Knights and the Big Bend Vikings. Big Bend, the tournament's number 6 seed, took on the number 11 seed Olympic Rangers in a contest that would never see a single Vikings base runner cross home plate, and in which Big Bend only mustered 1 hit through 7 innings as the Rangers prevailed by the final count of 7-0. Meanwhile, the number 10 seed Lady Knights were busy with the 6 seed Douglas Royals of British Columbia in a game that got off to a good start for WVC. The Lady Knights opened the scoring on an RBI double by third baseman Sierra Brown in the 2nd inning to go up 1-0, and then increased their lead to 4-1 in the 3rd with another run-scoring single and a fielder's choice. WVC enlarged their advantage to 6-1 in the 5th inning thanks to an RBI triple by pitcher Kayla Berg and an RBI single from shortstop Glory Cheevers. But just when it looked like the Lady Knights had fully tamed the Royals, they came roaring back to life, plating 4 runs in the bottom of the 5th to narrow WVC's margin to 6-5, and then adding 3 more in the 6th before closing out the Lady Knights in the top of the 7th in an 8-7 come-from-behind victory. The losses by both WVC and Big Bend dropped each of them into the tournament's consolation bracket, where the Lady Knights fell 6-0 to the Mount Hood Saints in a loss that ended their season later in the day. The Vikings, meantime, won their contest against the Columbia Basin Hawks by the final count of 7-2 and advanced to play the Clackamas Cougars on Sunday. Reporting for iFIBER 1 Sports, I'm Chris Hansen.
This is iFIBER 1 News. For more information on these stories and other news, visit us online at iFiber1.com or check us out on Facebook.